He leadeth me, O blessed thought, O words with heavenly comfort fraught. Whate'er I do, where'er I be, still 'tis God's hand that leadeth me. He leadeth me by His own hand. He leadeth me. His faithful follower I will be, for by His hand He leadeth me. Lord, I would clasp Thy hand in mine, nor ever murmur, nor repine. Content whatever lot I see, since 'tis Thy hand that leadeth me. He leadeth me by His own hand. He leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by His hand He leadeth me. And when my task on earth is done, when by Thy grace the victory's won, in death's cold wave I will not flee, since God through Jordan leadeth me. He leadeth me by His own hand. He leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by His hand He leadeth me. For by His hand He leadeth me.
It helps when you turn on the microphone. Thank you, Raleigh, so much for that. I'm on a 20-second delay, so it took a little while. I know, I just told everybody. So come here and say hi to everybody, Melissa. Melissa can't. No, she's not. Anyway, Melissa just came up to tell me that there's no sound. Anyway. I have no idea what I was saying. That may have been the best intro that I had ever done on one of these things. So I'm sure there'll be a great bad lip reading video of what I said from earlier. Let me try to recap for you just so you don't miss any of that wonderful stuff. Welcome. We're glad you're here. We lit a candle celebrating the presence of Christ in us, among us, and beyond us. And this morning, Jake and I were sitting out on the back porch for a little while, eating breakfast and talking, and really just sitting and watching the beauty that is all around us. And it was beautiful to see the squirrels jumping from tree to tree and a cardinal swimming past. Anyway, so it was a gorgeous and beautiful morning, and just a good time to be still and to remember and to see the presence of God all around us. So I hope you have some time to do that as well, to experience the presence of God, even though sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes it's hard to see that. Sometimes we don't feel that at all. So wherever you find yourself this evening, know that you are not alone, that you are surrounded with the loving arms of Christ and with the loving family of faith that we find ourselves in the midst of tonight as well. Tonight I'm excited because we're talking with Mary Jo Burke. Mary Jo is a charter member of Central, as were her parents and her sister Pat. She's been a deacon and she's served in the church for years and years and years, and we are so grateful that she took the time out to share with us. She'll share a little bit about growing up in Lexington, and maybe tell a couple of stories on Pat, and then we'll also hear a little bit about Central in the past and what that's been like too. So let's go and talk with Mary Jo now. So here we go. Hey Mary Jo, how are you doing?
Well, I'm fine, Aaron. How are you doing today?
Good. It's so good to see you.
Always good to see you.
Yeah, well, we
I appreciate all you're doing, keeping our group together, our church going, and everything in good shape.
well, thank you. It's a blessing to get to do it, and I know we've gotten to talk on the phone a few times since quarantine, but we haven't had a chance to talk in person. So so it's wonderful to get to see you again and see how you're doing. So we just want to check in and see how things have been going lately for you. So what's it been like for you?
Well, it's been pretty nice, actually. I've been very lucky. I'm in a comfortable place, and I've got good neighbors, and we share food with each other once in a while for a nice change. To begin with, my daughter didn't want me going out for anything or doing anything. She did all my grocery shopping and brought it. And then I said, when she had to start back to work, their place opened, I said she couldn't do that. So I started ordering from Kroger online, where I would order it and then go pick it up. Took me half the morning to make my order. I figured it out. And then I got tired of not seeing what I was getting. So I've lately been wearing my mask and rubber gloves, and I go in with a list and just go exactly to the places what I know I want, and come out, take the gloves off, open the car door, put hand sanitizer on, get in the car, and take my groceries home.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's an ordeal just going to the store, isn't it?
I know it. You go through a little routine every time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess that's better than getting. We've gotten some questionable produce lately as well. So.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well. I'm glad that you've that you've been able to be able to physically distance as much as possible. And have you been able to visit with family very much?
Well, for my big birthday, you'll find out I was born in 1930, so that means I am 90. And they were going to plan a nice big open house thing. Of course, that was off. So my daughter from Indiana and her daughter, my granddaughter, came down. And my daughter and her husband and granddaughter who were here. We went out to that daughter's house, and they'd been all careful before. And we had our masks, our gloves and stuff to begin with until we were ready to eat. and they'd ordered a nice dinner. But the highlight of the whole thing, my granddaughter Ellie from Indianapolis had made a video. She had sent word out to all of her brothers, everybody in the family she could think of, I think, with questions, and they were to send a video back to her. She put it all together with music and played it for me. It was asking them memories of things with me and what things we did were funny and what were bad and so forth and so on. So it was great, and I've still got that. And
that's awesome.
It was real funny and some touching, so I really appreciated that. And all of them contributed and did really well.
Oh, well, that's great. That is such a wonderful idea.
Well, one thing I thought was one of the funniest memories was my two grandsons who live here, Jared and Jason, Aline and Jeff's sons. When they were about 9, I guess they'd done something not too good. And for punishment, their mother said they were going to have a little class in etiquette. So they had me come out and we sat at their table. And first I had to tell them how you help a lady with her chair and let her sit before you sit down. Then you put your napkin in your lap, and went through the whole thing. But the thing they remembered was how to eat soup. I said, always push the spoon away from you in the bowl. You do not bring it straight up to your mouth. And they both laughed and thought that was the funniest thing. But of all the things to remember, that was one they remembered.
Oh, I think that's awesome. I think that that your lessons on etiquette would be good for so many people. You might want to consider doing like a YouTube channel with that. So
well, I'm not sure that I'm that good at it, but it was fun for them.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Well, so can you tell us a little bit about you've been at Central for a little while now, and I know most folks know you, but we'd like to know a little bit more about what brought you to Central, when you came to Central first, and so just give us a little background.
Okay, actually, I was born here in Lexington, grew up at Old Emmanuel Baptist Church on East High and Maxwell, and were there all through my childhood. Loved sitting on the back row with my grandmother because she let me go through her big purse through the service. And we had the fans, no air conditioning. We fanned through the whole thing. But anyway, let's see. It was when Tom and I were in Biloxi. I guess he was in the Air Force at the time. And the people, a few of the men from Central and from Rosemont, and I'm not sure what other churches, there were about, I think just like 10 or 12 men got together and decided they wanted to start a new church, which was Central Baptist Church, and they thought it should be near the hospital. Well, they bought a little house, which probably all of you know, and when we came back for the first time, you would go in the house. There was a little porch on the front. There was somebody sitting there taking attendance, and you went in the house. There were just chairs around, curtains on the side dividing classrooms, and the choir was, I think, just standing up front. The pastor was Clyde Chapman, a very nice, good man. And anyway, that was my first experience there.
Wow.
It just so happened when we came back at that time, I was expecting my first baby, and my mother insisted I go to the doctor while here. This was Christmas vacation. And he said I shouldn't travel back to Biloxi where we were because Tom was about to be assigned to a different place in 1 month. So I had to stay in Lexington. So I thought, well, I would go on move my membership from Biloxi, Mississippi. I was one of those was taught through a manual that you took your membership wherever you go. Your membership's not doing you any good sitting back at your old home church if you're somewhere else.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I moved it to Central while I was here that short time. And I was considered a charter member because that was the first year.
Oh, wow.
And then I was only here about a month when we went out to Ogden, Utah for his next assignment in the Air Force.
Oh, wow.
But it was interesting in those. I remember my dad saying at one time that when they were first starting trying to get money together, they would pass the plate around among them and say if they didn't get enough, they'd pass it again. I guess that was a common thing then.
Yeah. So now your parents were charter members too then?
Yes, that Daddy was one of the men who worked on getting it together.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's wonderful.
My mother and Ms. Tweedy had worked in the beginner department at the old manual. And my friend Margaret Tweedy, who I met when they moved here when we were in junior high, she and I were cohorts at Emmanuel. And I guess we didn't get into trouble, but we didn't like our Sunday school teacher in, I don't know if it was the junior or intermediate department, but it was an older man, and all he talked about was you shouldn't dance, you shouldn't go to movies, you shouldn't play cards. Well, we did all three. So we told our mothers and daddies we didn't like it. And so Mother and Miss Tweedy had said, well, we could come help them in the beginner department for the rest of that semester.
Right.
That's what we did.
Oh, that's great.
So then, anyway, Mother and Miss Tweedy were doing the beginner department at the new Central Baptist Church. And of course, all the members then did a lot of visiting, trying to bring in new members. And Mother and Miss Tweedy went to Shawneetown, where one of the little boys in their class had come to visit one day. They went to see he and his mother. And the little boy's mother said, he came to the door and said, oh, come in, before his mother even got to the door. So he went in and she asked him to sit down, and he turned around and said, you want a beer? Mother said she felt so sorry for his mother, she just didn't know what to say. So they kind of laughed and got out as quickly as they could.
That's awesome.
That's great. A lot of stories about the beginning of Central, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So do you have any other memories of Central that you want to share with us? What else did you? I
remember when we lived in Cynthiana. After Tom was out of the service, we moved to Cynthiana, Kentucky, and I was active in the Baptist church there and really loved it. But we would visit Lexington a lot on weekends, going to UK ball games and seeing Mother and Daddy, Pat and Dan. And I remember coming to Central for Sunday school, and I just loved the young lady that taught the class that I went in, and she had reddish hair, just really pretty, and really knew the Bible. Can you guess who that might have been?
I've got to guess. It was Theo, right?
Hatch. It was Theo Hatch.
Yeah. Oh, and that's awesome.
She was just wonderful, and I just thought she was the best Sunday school teacher I'd ever had.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was going to tell you a little bit about Lexington growing up, if you'd like to hear.
Yeah. I'd love to know some more about Lexington.
One long main street, which was the heart of town. It was a kind of small town then. You'd start at Broadway. Just near Broadway was Purcell's department store, then nice stores, all the way up to Wolf Wiles, which was just beyond the Esplanade. And at that time, people dressed up to go shopping. I remember Mother always had a hat and gloves. And even as we got to be teenagers, we'd wear stockings and heels to go downtown. And
oh, wow.
There were two great hotels, the Phoenix and the Lafayette, both lovely places to go for dinners, and they both had ballrooms, which we took advantage of in high school. All the high schools had a number of little, I guess, called social clubs, and we all wouldn't do much at our meetings all year except try to raise money. We had rummage sales and all kinds of stuff because we wanted to have a big dance. And we would hire an orchestra, and we'd go either to Lafayette or the Phoenix each year in high school for those dances, and that was sort of the highlight of the holidays.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
And then there were 3 movies. The Kentucky was the fancy one, and then there was the Strand and the Ben Ali. And we went to all 3 of those quite a bit growing up. I think my first date was in junior high. I guess you'd call it a date. My good friend Julianne Hurst. We'd been friends since, well, she says before we were born, because our parents were friends. So in kindergarten, when we moved back here from Atlanta, we knew each other from then on. And so anyway, we lived in the same neighborhood. And my friend was Fred and her friend was Joe, and they were best friends. So they asked us to go to a movie one Saturday afternoon. And they came and we stood on the corner there at Irvin Road and Fincastle and waited for the bus. I think it's a nickel apiece at that time. And went downtown and went to the movie. And the only place in Lexington that I think had air conditioning at the time was the Kentucky Theater. And it just blew this blast of cold air right on your back. So we were sitting there and also in a row, of course, and Joe and Fred both kind of eased their arms up around the back of the chair, and Julianne and I looked at each other. But that's as far as they went. They didn't even get us warm. Afterward, we went next door to the Lafayette drugstore, was right by the hotel, and we each had a Coke because we thought that's all they could afford probably. And then we went home, and that was our first big date.
Oh, that's awesome.
I had a good time growing up. We lived right there on Fincastle between Urban Road and McDowell Road, if you're familiar with Ashland Park. But we had a little group of kids there, about 8 or 9 of us, all near the same ages, and we all played together. There was this triangle park right there in the center of those streets. And we'd play softball, and we'd play kick the can. And I'll have to tell on Pat, my sister again. She was a little older, and one of the boys was a little older, and they kind of liked each other. And we noticed after a while, playing kick the can, they never tried to run in. They were always hiding. So that's just a little sidelight on Pat. If she were here, I don't think she'd care. And we rode our bikes everywhere. Our mothers let us ride over to Woodland Park to watch the boys play their games. And it was just an easier time, I think, for children. You know, you were out on your own and you went in for meals and whatever.
Yeah. It's amazing how things have changed when it comes to that. I remember when I was a kid riding my bike all over Richmond, and my mom says, "I didn't know you rode over and did that," you know. But we would kind of go out and ride forever, and I can't imagine letting my kids do that now.
Yeah. No, they have to be very careful, of course.
Yeah.
It was a lot freer then.
Yeah. Oh, well, anything else that you all did, or any other Lexington memories?
Oh, lots of them. Let's see. What were some of the things? Oh, well, going on into high school. Of course, one of the things I liked best was Mr. Hall's dancing class. And that was fun. That got us kind of started on all that. But the girls would sit on one side of the gym down at the old YWCA, and the boys on the other side. And then you had to line up according to height for the class. And I was kind of short at the time, and there were taller boys I liked to dance with. So I'd stand on my tiptoes to try to get back. But there was one boy closer to my size. We got to dance together a lot, and he would look, and we'd count back and try to meet each other for the Grand March where we'd get our partners.
Yeah.
And then
that's awesome.
At parties, he had parties for us without the class. And that's when the girls, we wore little white gloves and dressed up, of course, and the boys, their coats and ties. And the girls had to sit in the chairs on one side, the boys on the other, and they would come across and they could ask whoever they would like to dance with them. So that was kind of neat, but they had to come over and say, let's see, what was it? May I have this dance?
So they had to be nice. And they didn't let the girls go ask.
Yes. And then sometimes there were no breaks where you would dance only with that person, nobody could cut in. But other times, boys who had not had a partner could cut in. They would tap the shoulder of the boy you were dancing with, and he would have to step back and let that boy start dancing with you.
Oh, wow.
So that was fun because you got to dance with different ones.
You didn't get stuck with one. So did they ever let did they let the ladies go ask the guys to dance?
No.
Never.
It was the boys' choice.
Right.
And then at Henry Clay, we did, of course, we were out of dancing school, but we had our parties and dances. And we had Jake's drugstore right across the street from the school. We were Henry Clay High on East Main, which is now the Board of Education, I think.
Oh, yeah.
You know where that is on East Main?
Yeah.
It was a great school. And it was not a cool thing to eat in the school cafeteria. I don't think I ever even saw the school cafeteria. We would get out of class and run across the street. It's a wonder we didn't get hit, but there weren't that many cars then. Yeah. And we would have lunch at Jake's where all our friends were. That was the big highlight of a school day.
Oh, that's awesome.
Downtown, also, there was the Canary Cottage, which was a really nice restaurant, about the only one in town, because people didn't go out to eat then like they do now. There were no drive-ins. And Pat had these 3 friends that were all close friends, Mary Ellen and Joan and Anita. And they did everything a lot together after school. They'd go to Anita's house to do their Latin, supposedly, but I think they played cards most of the time. But anyway, Anita's mother smoked. And so I'm sure that they smoked at Anita's house. Well, it was okay with their mothers, but our mother did not think girls should smoke. She seemed to think it was okay for boys, but it was not ladylike, I guess. Oh. Well, anyway, one day after school, Pat and her 3 friends decided to walk down to the Canary Cottage and get a Coke. We drank a lot of Cokes back then. And they were sitting there being very brave and thought they were so sophisticated having a cigarette in the Canary Cottage. When lo and behold, here came my mother and her good friend Julianne's mother walking in. They had been shopping. They were coming in for a Coke, and there they were, saw Pat and everybody smoking. And Pat said, Mother stopped and just stared at her, didn't say a word, but then went on back. And Pat said, oh my goodness, now I've got to go home. He was really getting worried.
She knew what it meant.
Exactly.
Oh, that's worse. It's worse. It's worse knowing that you're in trouble and not knowing what's going to happen. So. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Oh, well, these are such great stories, Mary Jo. It's so good to hear about life growing up in Lexington and what things were like.
I'll tell one on myself, I guess. I've told enough on Pat. Another thing we like to do, none of us had cars of our own. Just you were lucky if the parents would let you borrow a car, you know. But Julianne, Margaret, Judith, and Ann Powell and I had walked up to Jake's one evening to get a Coke again. That was our excuse to go because that's where you would see everybody. Well, a friend of ours, a boy named Clinton, had a car there, his dad's car, and he said, oh, y'all want to go ride the bumps on Mount Tabor? Well, you may not. At that time, Mount Tabor had these little hills, and if you pressed on the accelerator and let off right at the top of the hill, everybody in the car would bounce all the way up and sometimes hit the ceiling. For some reason, we thought that was fun.
It sounds fun.
No seatbelts or anything. So we said, sure. So we rode out with Clint, and we were doing fine until he missed something, and we ended up in a ditch on the Mount Tabor, which at that time was out in the country. So we didn't know what to do. And Clint went up to this farmhouse, and a man came out. They let us come in and sit. They were very nice. And he came out and got us out of the ditch. Well, we finally drove back. It hadn't taken too long. So Clint took us back to Jake's, and the four of us walked back to our homes, and we decided we didn't need to tell our mothers and daddies about this. It would just worry them.
Right.
So of course we did. Well, that night I was already upstairs getting ready for bed or in bed, and the doorbell rang, and it was Clint's dad, Dr. Ellis, and he just wanted to be sure Mary Jo was all right after their wreck.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, I hadn't said anything to Mother and Daddy about any of that. So, young people, you're going to get caught if you do something like that. Anything you're not supposed to do, you're going to get caught. That's my message.
Right. If you're smoking or dancing or,
Yeah, right.
or riding around.
Taking bumps in a car.
Oh, that's great.
We had a lot of good times, a lot of good friends, and about the only one left of that group now is Margaret Tweedy Reagan, and she now lives in Virginia, but we talk every Friday night and sometimes in between.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of folks like that, can you tell us a little bit about how Pat's doing right now?
She's doing about as well as we can expect. She seems to be pretty content. And of course, it's frustrating that we can't go in or take her out anywhere or anything, but we talk through the windows. And they have movies on for them, and she's doing as well as she can, I think. They're seem to take good care of them. It's a smaller unit. I think I've mentioned before that there are just 12 rooms in that unit, and they've all been together the whole time, so they still let them go to their kind of a great room for their TV, and they all eat together on an enclosed porch sort of that looks out over a pretty garden. So that's very nice.
Well, that's good. That's good, and I'm glad that you get to. I hate that you can't actually get to go in and visit, but it's good that you can.
I know.
You can at least see and wave and talk with her some during this time too. So yeah. Well, what have you been doing?
Keep reminding her.
Yeah.
Excuse me. What?
Oh no, I was gonna say, what have you been doing to stay sane during this time?
Well, let's see. I read quite a bit and watch TV. I've had my yoga class continued on Zoom, which was really good. I like that.
Oh, that's great.
I took through Ollie thing at UK. I took a little history. Well, it was mirth and magic and mystery. It was started out kind of like fairy tales. And she brought out the fact that so many of the fairy tales and nursery rhymes were actually code for political things at the time, which I'd never thought of.
Yeah.
That was kind of interesting. And then she's a really great teacher. I've taken a lot of history things for her, and I've just signed up for another one for fall. It'll be on Zoom. And that helps a lot. And then I go out and walk around my neighborhood here and go out to see Pat through the window.
You're right, yeah.
That's about it. And my daughter here has been so good about having me come there for supper in the evenings or bring me things here a lot of times when they're doing that. And then when my daughter from Indiana has made a trip or two down, and she always brings things in a cooler that stocks my freezer. They know I don't like to cook anymore.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful.
Oh, well, that's great.
So things have been, I think I'm very fortunate and very blessed with how lucky I've been.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear that things are going good. Did you? We had talked a little bit. Did you have something that you'd like to share with us? Maybe a devotional thought or
well,
scripture
yes.
or something?
I will. I believe in prayer. And I like this verse from Psalm 116, verses 1 and 2. I love the Lord because he hears my prayers and answers them. Because he bends down and listens, I will pray as long as I breathe. And I've got a couple of examples if you've got time. I don't know how much time we've used.
Oh, we've got plenty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one, my grandson, my oldest grandson, when he was about 15, was at Culver Academy summer camp in Indiana for their summer camp. And he was having such a good time. And one night, like teenage boys, they were playing around, and he thought he would jump from the railing of one of the, I think about the third floor, to the next level, which was just a few feet down. But he missed something and fell all the way to the bottom. And they called his mother and dad, and of course, they thought he was dying. And she drove as fast as she could with her next son. Her husband had to stay there with the twins, who were little. And they were praying all the way up. They got there, and he was at the hospital. All he had was a broken arm and a slight skull fracture.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
And it was just amazing. And later, Teresa, my daughter, found out her sister-in-law, Nancy, who's Catholic, had a friend going to the Czech Republic, to Prague. And she asked her, she wanted to send an offering to that certain church in Prague, I've forgotten the name of it, and to pray for all the children in her family. Well, the woman did that, and when she got back, Nancy was telling her about Thomas Fall, and she said, what day was it? And it was the day she was in Prague praying at the church, and she said, what time was it? And they figured the time he fell was the very time she was making her offering and her prayer.
Oh, wow.
And then I've got another good example. These are pretty extreme. I know that our prayers every day are answered just as well, sometimes not the way we want them. But when our children were little, well, let's see, Pat and I went to Florida to their condo, and I took Teresa and Allie, and she took Ted and Dana. And they were, I guess, about 10, mine were about 10 and 8 or 12 and 10, somewhere along in there. Hers were a little older. And the Gants, Pat's good friend from high school, Mary Ellen, and her husband were there from Owensboro with their 2 boys, all about the same age, and another family, the Kuntzes, with boys. Well, we were all playing out and had been in the swimming pool and having a good time. We all went in to get lunch. Well, for some reason, Mary Ellen's 2 boys and I think the Kuntz boy had stayed in the pool, and I don't know if nobody realized that at the time or didn't stay to watch them. And all of a sudden we heard this loud scream from one of the Kuntz boys. He said, Stuart's stuck in the drain. He was in the bottom of the pool. They had taken the thing off the drain and had his arm cut in there. He could not get out. And everybody, Ms. Gilb was there, who had taught swimming. She dived in. She couldn't get him out. The Kuntz boy ran down the street to their motel to get his dad, and he saw 2 boys walking along, young men with scuba diving gear. And he told them to come quick, what had happened. They came and were able to get him out. And they called, of course, an ambulance, and actually nobody thought he lived. We thought he'd been in there too long, and got to the hospital that evening, and those horrible sounds you could hear from it. But anyway, God answered everybody praying as hard as we could pray. He recovered, had a wonderful life, had a great career, traveled all over the world. He's now retired, has children and grandchildren, has had a good life.
Wow.
So that was extreme, but a lot of prayer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A reminder for us to be praying all the time for
Yeah.
things. Yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much. This beautiful scripture to remind us that, as long as we have breath, we'll be you know
Yeah.
be praying.
You
So
know,
that's
where I
wonderful.
first noticed that particularly was walking at Emmanuel Baptist Church at their walking track. They had that up on the wall in one place, and they've got
Yeah.
different scriptures around the wall, but I like that one.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I tell you what, Mary Jo, it has been such a joy to get to talk with you and to get to hear stories about what Lexington was like, about Central and what it was like, and just to get to see you again has been wonderful. And it's so good to know that things are going good for you right now. Even though I'm sure we wish that everything was a little different and we could see each other again.
Yes, we'll be
But
glad when we can get out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's been such a joy to get to see you. Thank you so much for
Well,
taking
it's
time
so
out to
good
do
to be with
this.
you, Aaron, and thank you again for doing all these things.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to, and it really is a joy. So thank you so much. And the next time you're waving at Pat, wave for us too, and
I will
let
do
her know
that.
we're thinking about her as well.
That's
So
great. Thank you.
yeah, okay, thanks. Well, we'll see you, Mary Jo.
Good night.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Mary Jo. It truly is a joy to get to talk with you and to see you again. And I tell you, what a blessing and a privilege it is to get to be part of this congregation, part of this family of faith, where we can share stories with one another, where we can share our lives with one another, and where we have the opportunity to rub elbows with folks who help us see the things that are most important, help us to find joy in the midst of our lives, and to find peace, and to live lives with each other where we can be part of God's goodness and grace in the world. So thank you so much, Mary Jo, for sharing with us this. And next week, I think we'll probably need to talk about the dangers of movies, cards, and dancing. So maybe Mark can preach a sermon on Sunday about that, movies, cards, and dancing. We'll see. Who knows? But anyway, wonderful stories. Thank you so much. What a wonderful time it was to get to share together this evening. Before we go, I do want to give you a chance to offer prayers. You can always send prayers to pray@lexcentral.com, to that email address. You can go look at our prayer requests at lexcentral.com/pray. And if you want to connect with a Zoom group, you can go to lexcentral.com/Zoom. There's a link on the front of the website now that you can click on as well to go find those things so that you can stay connected with us. I know there's a lot of loss and heartache right now as well. So I'm going to sing Amazing Grace. And feel free to join in and sing along. Maybe you need to use this time just to sit quietly and take a deep breath. Maybe you'd like to offer a prayer request in the chat as well. Feel free to do that too, so that we can join together in prayer, so that we can stand with one another this evening. So let's sing if you'd like to. Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. Through many thank you so much for being with us this evening and for joining with us. You can find us again on Sunday on the same YouTube channel where we will gather again for worship this Sunday. So you can look for your newsletter, and if you're not signed up for the newsletter yet, you can go to our website and you can sign up there as well, so that you get all the notifications that you need, and you can stay in touch with us. And so thank you so much for being with us this evening again, and we'll see you again soon. Go in peace.